This is the very first time the Dice Tower has come out of the studio.
Got a passport.
Up top.
6.
Up top. Down into the
Oh, sorry.
grass.
Oh my God, I got nervous. 1.
1.
Okay, the 6 wasn't meant to
my
be.
favorite question.
Oh, great.
Scream. I can only be asking one question right now. What's your favorite scary movie?
Yeah,
That
of
isn't
course. It's
Megan.
a
That
great
isn't
question.
The Perfection. That isn't Get Out.
It is so hard to answer this because, as you might know, I don't watch a lot of scary movies because I get very easily scared. What is my favorite scary movie? You know what I'm gonna say, I guess, is not very interesting because it's so common, but it's one I don't know that I'll ever be able to watch again in its entirety, but it's The Shining, I think. I mean, let me be revolutionary and say it's The Shining. Let me blow everyone's minds.
There's
and change
never
culture.
anything wrong with saying something
It's just
that
so
iconic.
good, and it's so creepy, and he's super talented. We should keep our eye on him as a filmmaker. I think he's going places. It's just it's perfect. And I don't know that I have it in me to like start to finish watch the full Shining again. I don't know if my system can handle it.
I understand that. I'll give you back another recent Stephen King adaptation that's exceptional, and it's not horror. You have to go see The Life of Chuck.
Okay.
It's just like a brilliant character piece that's structured unlike any narrative I've ever seen before. Tom Hiddleston is in it, and it's phenomenal.
I can't wait.
Mike Flanagan directed it, who directed Dr. Sleep.
Yes, and who directs all of
who directed
Haunted
Violet.
Hill House, which literally left me unwell for a long time. Mike Flanagan, I've said this before, but you owe me hours of sleep, Mike Flanagan. Like, seriously, you owe me sleep.
I love how, as I recommend Life of Chuck, then it just computed that Violet is in that movie.
Yes, Violet is in Life of Chuck, and she's in Haunting of Hill House. Violet McGraw is the best.
It's no
the
one
Violet,
better to
as
haunt
we
your
call
dreams.
her. Yeah.
What do you call
her? The Violet.
Okay.
Because she is incredibly, well, this is kind of off topic, I guess. Are we going to talk about her later, or can I talk about her now?
No, you can talk about her now, and you can talk about her later.
I'm crazy about Violet McGraw. One of the things I love about her is that she is a kid. She is her age in so many ways. And she and Amy Donald, who is Megan physically, are like so sweet and giggly and happy and enthusiastic and kid-eat. I mean, they're preteens and they're getting older, and I can't accept it, but they get to be their age, and then it's like a switch flips, which is why we call her the Violet, and then they channeled these like people who are capable of mounting the level of professionalism of like an adult set environment, and it's just mind-boggling. And then they go back to being well-adjusted, awesome, kind, fun, funny, dark, funny people. And so, yeah, I mean, like, I'm just crazy about Violet, but she's so talented, and she's been freaking me out since Haunting of Hill House, frankly.
I mean, I get that.
Yeah.
She has earned the ability to do that without a doubt.
She sure has, yeah.
All right, second roll in the tower.
Okay. I feel like I still need to do this. That's what threw me off, because I am always like...
Admittedly, before I got that tower, I didn't really know what a dice tower was. I didn't know that was a thing.
But I've been watching people do this for many, many episodes of your show. Okay, this is 7.
7 is something leaning into this movie. It's your phone, because obviously the movie isn't like pushing away all technology. So I just want to know something you do on your phone on a regular basis that brings you joy.
Okay, this is breaking news. I filmed a movie in, when was that? April and May, a little bit. That is a whole different movie. And for a moment, it looked like I was going to be playing Candy Crush on camera for some additional money for the movie. Here's the devastating part. I was then deemed not cool enough to earn the money that they were going to be paying to be the person playing it on camera. They wanted like a McKenna Grace playing it on camera, who's also in the movie, who's amazing, who's also in Haunting of Hill House. They wanted her doing it and not me, but it left me just with the addiction again. Like, I am back 8 years ago or whatever it was when I was just dreaming of Candy Crush. Like, I could literally see it as I was falling asleep, and I'm fully back. And I'm currently, my husband is shooting overseas, and when I get like 2-minute breaks in the day, because parenting, if you're used to having a dual parenting situation when the other person's not there, it can be a lot. And when I have little breaks, a lot of the time I literally play like a life worth of Candy Crush, and it brings me joy, it centers me. And when I started playing it again for the first time in all these years, it says something in the opening screen it's like a slogan, and one of the words is relax. And I was like, relax. Like, I don't associate games with relaxing, and I'm not a gamer, and but I find it deeply relaxing, and that is what brings me joy on my phone is Candy Crush.
Your Candy Crush is my words with friends. I will never let it go.
Social, that is intellectual, that is building on a vocabulary, and it's, you know, helping to keep your brain matter facile. It is like helpful. I'm sure there's studies about how like Alzheimer's is like no match for words with friends, and mine is just somehow cracking things open, and I don't even really understand the logic of like, it's candy, I guess, that's going down, and it's like always talking about an order, and I'm like, I work in a store. What is the logic? What world am I in? I don't know. There needs to be a live action Candy Crush movie.
There's clearly some sort of like strategic thing there though, that's training your brain to work in ways that you don't even know while you're playing.
Yeah, maybe. Or maybe it's like mindless enough and just like uncomplicated. I did talk to my therapist about it recently, and she was like, I get it. And I felt validated by that and comfortable enough to disclose it here. So
watch now.
You heard it here first. That's
I'm
what
gonna
I
wind up picking up a Candy Crush addiction now.
Honestly, like I started doing it because my character, the whole idea was that like this is her go-to thing, and we were like, well, she can't be at level like 4, so I just had her phone for a day on set and was just playing it between takes. And then Brunson, our producer, came up to me and was like, so you are no longer doing Candy Crush.
What is that movie called?
That's called Regretting You for Paramount.
Oh,
it's
and that's coming out later this year.
It is coming out in October.
And Mason's in that too.
Exactly.
Okay.
I know, our fellow Universal.
This is like I love filmmaking families, and this one's just growing and growing.
It's true. Yeah,
Ooh,
exactly.
I like that.
Anyway, so
third roll.
Okay. 4.
4 is bucket list. I just want something that is still left. I was about to say on your acting bucket list, but filmmaking bucket list, so I can broaden the roles.
Good question. What a good question. Let's see. I mean, this one is I want to work with Greta. I want to work with Greta Gerwig so badly. So badly. I'll just put it out in the universe.
I like that.
I really do.
I always say Ladies' Night is about manifesting things.
I will listen. It's powerful. It has worked before, by the way.
It has indeed.
It really like works. So
I've revisited some episodes and I'm like, oh, do I have magical powers?
I think so. It's a combination. It's like a I would love to work with Greta Gerwig. I think she's, again, not a like revolutionary person to say I think is talented, but because it's kind of obvious and it's just a fact at this point, but I would love to work with her. And I just really like her as a person. And every time I see footage of her directing, she's so full of joy. Like there's this one clip from Lady Bird, like behind the scenes, where they're like running through the field and she's directing and she's just so joyful and loving what she's watching. And I mean, it was also like Saoirse Ronan and Timothée Chalamet running through a field, and like, who wouldn't love watching that for a day of shooting? But she just looked like, I just want to be around that energy on a set. That seems great. Yeah.
She was one of my first in-person junkets ever.
Really? For what?
House of the Devil. At the Crosby Street Hotel in New York City, and I thought I was so cool being there in person, talking movies.
How did it go?
I think it went pretty well.
Yeah, nice. Clearly.
It was like a group setting. It was her and Ty West, and you know, they gave me good vibes, and I'm still here, so they must have started me off on the right foot.
Yeah, I bet you were good from the beginning.
I had things to learn. I went to
who doesn't?
We'll get to your journey in school, but I went to film school eventually, and I feel like you could watch my interviews before and after and see a complete shift when I felt what it feels like to make a movie.
Oh, interesting.
And that completely changed how I review movies, how I talk about movies, how I cover them.
Yes. Well, your questions are so good. Like, you ask really interesting questions that betray that level of familiarity with the process.
Always the goal. Always the goal. Hopefully I keep that up through the end of this.
We'll see at the end of this interview.
You got your bonus roll first,
oh my gosh,
though.
I'm so excited.
One more.
My lucky number is 8, so I'm just desperate for 8
to
be the one that comes up. It's 4 again.
You can roll again. I need an 8 now. 2. I'm going to give you the 8 anyway, eventually. Okay, but this is also a good question. This is scene swap. If you could pick an actor from one of your favorite films or shows to swap roles with, just so you could try one scene of theirs, who would you choose and why?
I know. I always watch people answer this question, and they always have better answers than anything I've been thinking about in case it came up. The thing that's so hard is that you're then putting yourself in that production with all of the co-stars, and you're also, there's something kind of like weird about maybe I could do a better job than them.
Oh, I get that.
You know, which is uncomfortable because you're like, I don't think I could. So I think I would have been and I won't name which one, Von Trapp kid, so that I could have seen Julie Andrews doing anything in that movie in The Sound of Music in person, because she's like why I do what I do, basically. She's everything to me. And so if I had been able to be a Von Trapp child, then I don't care about the scene work that I would have been responsible for, although I can stand in a line and sing. I've done it many times. But it would have meant that I was in direct proximity with her and watching her just do like the sparkliest, most beautiful, glowiest thing in the world.
That's a good twist on that question.
Well, I can't, it's hard to answer directly, because what if you're like, this person sucked in this role and it was great material and I want to redo it?
I feel like sometimes I ask and it's more about like scene swapping with a person that you're in the project with. And like, especially if it's an ensemble piece, I love hearing like how something might change if two people switched roles. But like when you brought
obviously,
it in,
if I was trying to pull off like Megan's dialogue, it just wouldn't have the same bite to it. So I don't think there's anyone I can swap with in this movie.
So excited to get to this movie. But wait, first I want to give you 8.
Okay.
8, because like 8's one of my new favorite questions.
I just need to be looking at 8. It feels karmically wrong to not. Okay,
something about you doing that speaks to me right now. I feel like I would do
glad.
the same thing. This is everyday things. Okay. I want to know a seemingly small everyday thing that human beings do that is most difficult to replicate on set as an actor.
Going to the bathroom, like, you know, I mean, do you mean, actually this works no matter what you mean, but I will clarify. Do you mean that the human actor over the course of a shooting day has trouble accomplishing X, or pretending to do it on camera?
You're going to give me a whole nother question to add to this now. No, I mean like something like fake sneezing, fake waking up.
Oh, fake sneezing is really hard. Fake waking up is really hard. Drunk is hard because a lot of people lean into the drunk, but drunk people typically are trying not to look drunk. And so that's like how I play it, is like the way I do drunk on camera is when you're walking down the aisle of an airplane and there's like a little bit of turbulence and you're just sort of like laser focused on the end of the aisle and you're trying to you have your hands out in case you need to touch a headrest, but you're just sort of like just going and it's a little wobbly. That focused eye line is like super important for drunk walking.
That makes so much sense.
I really enjoy doing it.
When you said walking down the aisle of an airplane, I wasn't even thinking about turbulence. Like, you know, when you're walking down a really tight aisle and just trying so hard not to touch the people on
people's heads,
but like
with your
then
backpack.
You start swaying in weird ways.
Yeah, it's tough. Okay, what would I say is the hardest one? I think actually sneezing. Sneezing is hard. I guess a lot of people have said that, but it is hard because it is a thing that like happens that you're not totally responsible for. And so recreating it is extremely hard because I don't understand where they start. I don't know how to summon that part of it. I just know what the like last part feels like. And so they're always very abrupt when you pretend to do them.
The original version of this question used to be, would you rather have to fake sneeze or fake vomit in a scene? Because people are always like, ew, I don't want to fake vomit, but fake sneezing is near impossible.
I'll fake vomit any day. And yes, and it's the fake vomiting technique is all about, you have to have it there. It has to be ready, usually preset in your like mouth, and you have to just find a position for your mouth that does not look like there's anything in there, and that's the biggest challenge, and that is what separates the thespians from the actors.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back for a new edition of Collider Ladies Night. So thrilled to welcome Allison Williams to the show.
I'm so thrilled to be here.
Can you tell me the movie you saw, the performance you saw, personal experience you had, whatever it may be, that first made you say to yourself, have to be an actor?
I just thought about that as I was saying Julie Andrews, that I was stepping on my own answer to this question. But it is Julie Andrews. I mean, Mary Poppins and Sound of Music together were like, I would say she's tied with Mary Martin as Peter Pan. Like that, those three I just watched obsessively, constantly. And that was also with Wizard of Oz, Julie Andrews in those two roles, and then people doubling up in Wizard of Oz is how I figured out that it was a job, that like one person could pretend to be doing different people. And that kind of realizing I could play dress up and pretend for a living was like deeply enticing. And it's so funny because yesterday or 2 days ago, I was talking to our son and I was explaining, because my husband's shooting and he's pretending to be someone else, and that's what we do. We pretend for a living. And I was like, would you find that idea appealing? And he was like, no. I was like, okay, great. But yeah, I think I immediately was like, I do this all the time anyway. I would love to do it professionally. I can't believe I get to. It's amazing.
So that inspired you to want to do it professionally. When you made that decision to pursue it as a career, at that time, what did you think was step one to making that dream a reality? And having done it, would you recommend that as a first step to another aspiring actor?
Well, when I thought about it, I'm sure I dressed up a lot as what my concept of Marilyn Monroe was, which really just consisted of a blonde wig, some eyeliner here with a beauty mark, and then like something with feathers. And that's kind of, I sort of thought, I think part of me was like, if I just walk the earth this way, someone will see me and be like, there you are. We've been looking for you. You 5-year-old, tiny dress and shoes too big, dragging on the floor behind you, Marilyn Monroe impersonator. I didn't have a plan. I just was like, I have to do it. And so that initially it looked like doing all the school plays and stuff. But crucially, my parents, who may even have seen this in me before I was able to put language to it, were like eager to have a little pause, as much time cooking as possible before I entered this field professionally. And so they kind of made this goal for me of reaching college graduation before pursuing acting professionally. And so I always kind of knew that it was what I was going to do and wanted to learn everything around the margins of it as much as possible, but felt very frustrated that I wasn't pursuing it professionally from a really young age, and was like devastated that I was never going to play a high schooler or a middle schooler or anything like that. And now when I interact with a Violet, for example, and I see what her wiring is like and how successfully she's been able to maintain her sense of self in combination with this huge career she has with like multiple things happening at the same time, I'm like, oh, that constitution is right for this job. I would have been destroyed by it completely. And they made the right call. I'm very grateful.
I always think about that stuff and like what I was doing at her age. Like I couldn't act professional on a film set for an hour, let alone an entire shoot.
Well, and that's the thing about when you start acting young, often the qualities about you that are the most praised are the ones that are the least childlike. And I think that's what's so unique about Violet, for example, is that the parts of her that are childlike have been encouraged and fostered and fed and nourished, not just by her family, but also then we all follow their example, and everyone who works around her does the same thing. And so it's incredible that she's able to turn it on and literally has never delivered a bad take of anything. I'm not even exaggerating. I think it's perfect every time. She can take a note, immediately implement it beautifully. Like she spends the least amount of time on set shooting. She doesn't have to.
I'm jumping ahead, but I do really want to ask this because I feel like we often talk about like the young actor learning from the more veteran actor, but I love how that learning can go both ways. Totally. What is something you saw her do on either of these sets that you're like, you know what, I'm gonna back pocket that and try it myself?
I can't remember if I did this already and then I saw her do it and started doing it, or if it was something that like I had been doing privately and then realized I could do it on set too. But she often will just like close her eyes and take a breath to get herself into a scene. Literally like 4 seconds before, maybe once they've gotten the slate out and they're like wiping off the last take number and they're about to slate. She'll just close her eyes and take a breath. And we do it together all the time now. And I think that's a really nice centering thing, because we also, unless we're being sad and we're crying and whatever, we also are just singing Taylor Swift wall to wall when we're not shooting. So we have to transition out of the 10-minute all too well somehow. And the way we do that is we take a breath, we leave the verse where we left off, take a breath, we come back into the room, we do the scene, and then immediately we start doing it again, which is really special. I
feel like that would help anybody in any career. Just like sit and take a breath before you do something high pressure.
It's great. It's very cleansing. And it's also like, it gives you a second to be like, okay, we're not actually here to just like sing songs together and hang out, but we are doing that, and that's been fun. And now we're transitioning.
It's always good to have the balance.
Yeah.
Before I get into the professional work here, one thing I did want to ask you about that I was reading about is the improv comedy troupe you were a part of, and I just wanted to get the timeline right. Is that something you did while you were studying at Yale, or is that something?
Yeah, that was at college. That was college. So when I was an English major, I didn't study theater. My freshman year, I auditioned for the main stage musical at the school, and I delivered a rude awakening. Basically, these were like fully professional. Like they had gone to all of the summer camps that are super impressive, where like that produce the Ben Platts of the world. And they are showing up at this school with full books of songs they know and headshots and like scenes that they're prepared to do. And I like wasn't in that kind of place. So I did not get a part in this musical. And it was a clear lesson of like, I had gone from being a big fish in a small pond to a tiny fish in a gigantic ocean. And I was feeling very sad that I hadn't gotten a part and very rejected. And my friend was like, I'm going to see an improv show. Do you want to come with me tonight? And I was like, you know what? Yes, I'm very upset. And that sounds like it'll make me feel better. And so we went to see an improv show, and it was this group who did short, long, and musical form improv. So short form, like small little scenes, and then longer form versions of it. And then a fully improvised musical that consisted of, I don't know, like 5 or 6 scenes at the end of each show. And I was just in complete awe. I had watched Whose Line Is It Anyway, but I had never really gone to like a UCB show or Groundlings show or anything like that. It was the first time I'd seen an improv show in person. And I just was like completely transfixed by this skill set. And I then forgot all of my sadness about the musical and instead just became laser focused. Like, I have to get into this group. I have to learn how to do this. And they held auditions the following week. It was their recruiting show to do just exactly what it did to me, ignite a deep burning fire in me that needed to get in. And I was one of 3 freshmen that was tapped for the group. And that became like the meat of my college experience and is to this day, really, with the exception of one auditioning for camera class, the extent of my acting training.
Oh, I have so many follow-up questions. Improv in general, just like, it terrifies me. That's like, there's many things about being an actor that terrifies me, which is why I sit here really and I marvel at what you do. Improv in particular, just truly, my brain can't compute it. Do you remember the very first moment where it went from like, I am in awe of this to like, this fills me up creatively in a way that I need?
It happened so quickly. Basically, from the moment in the auditions, you're obviously doing scenes, and there's just a moment where you just are suddenly on the other side of this threshold where you're doing it. I imagine it's like learning how to ride a bike, where suddenly you get the push and then you're just pedaling and then you don't look behind you, but then some part of you is like, oh, I guess I'm doing this by myself now. I think I'm just riding a bike by myself. It's kind of like that. You get just like nudged into the context of a scene, and then suddenly you're doing an improv scene. And you actually could do improv, because here's the biggest thing that matters. Yes, and of course, but also just being light on your feet and not being attached to a plan. That's the biggest, and for a control freak, that's like the number one challenge of it, is like, you just have to be able to go with wherever I'm taking you, and go with me maybe for a question or two. And then you can go back to your list and where we are in the sequence, but you're so good at this. Like, you're very able to take an idea that I throw to you and take it and throw it back to me. Like, that is improvisation, and you know how to do it. It's just the fact that doing it in front of other people is intimidating. And I was terrified the first time. And the first time in a musical, like, you don't plan any of it ahead of time. We got a name for the musical and maybe a location for the opening scene, and then that's it. And so it's kind of up to you to, whoever steps out first, there's a pianist who's improvising a song, and whoever steps out first is responsible for starting the big opening number of a musical. And so the first show that I felt brave enough to step out first, there's like no feeling like it. And then whoever steps out in the next scene is usually the protagonist, who has to sing the want song. And that's even more pressure. The I Want to Be Where the People Are song, and Somewhere Over the Rainbow, like all of those songs. That part is scary. And then once you've done it, you've done it. And then you know how to do it. I could like feel it, as you just said, the first person to step out and get it going. Like, it just, like, it made me think of bungee jumping. I feel like that's where I'm too scared to do. I've never bungee jumped or gone out of an airplane.
You keep
or any
improving, and I'll keep skydiving and bungee jumping.
Have you gone?
Have indeed.
Interesting.
Yeah, just went skydiving in Austin, and
Incredible.
I went.
And that wasn't like just
skydiving's easy. Skydiving, you are like a baby who can't move, who is strapped to the professional that does everything for you. Bungee jumping, you are responsible for literally hurling yourself off of a platform, and that's a little scary.
I'm realizing in this moment we are fundamentally about as differently wired as I can imagine being wired to someone. Skydiving is easy is a sentence that if I ever say that, I have been taken hostage, and that's the way I'm trying to articulate to my family that I am not myself and I'm not okay.
Get in one of those like tube things first, where like you fake simulate
it. Maybe that, if like it failed and I could fall and I'd be fine, that's sure. If it's like a trampoline under me, but skydiving is easy. Like, there's no getting off the ground on an airplane for me is like a very deeply stressful experience, let alone jumping out of one. That's sort of the nightmare scenario in my world.
I understand that thinking, but it just doesn't compute in my brain.
I get it. Alexander was like for a while a certified skydiver. Like he loves skydiving. He loves scuba diving, like all of the divings and all of the being in places I don't feel like we belong. And he's very into it.
You are right where you belong.
Exactly. In a chair on Earth.
This is the one time I belong in a chair.
Yeah.
A couple of girls' questions. I want to hit like beginning, middle, and end.
Okay.
First, for the beginning, it was your first series regular role. What would you say is the biggest learning curve you experienced making season 1?
Oh my gosh. A discipline, I guess. Like an endurance. When you're filming a season of a show, it is it's kind of like you're building the tracks in real time to some extent. And the exact amount of preparation to do for girls was something that took me a little while to get my sea legs for. I hadn't done that before. I'd only done plays where you're dealing with a single text. It's not changing. And you learn your lines as early as you possibly can. And then you're rehearsing the blocking and all of that and the performance and dialing all of that in. And with girls, you're constantly turning over into a new play. And not only that, but the scene as written, as you may have memorized it the night before, was very likely to change once we showed up that day. So the exact amount to be familiar with it was the biggest learning curve, because if I got too attached to the words on the page, I'd get totally thrown off when they changed after rehearsal, even if what we discovered was my idea or was something better than was on the page, which was always the case if we changed it. So that was tricky. Getting totally like firmly off book was not helpful on that show. And yet not being off book at all and just walking into rehearsal with like no sense of the words was also not helpful. And so dialing that in, I think, was the first skill that I had to develop. Yeah.
Finding a happy medium is always the most difficult thing anywhere.
Yeah.
I'm a big old nerd for acting techniques. I might actually ask 2 questions about this.
I knew you were going to ask me this question.
I don't know. I have a couple that are swirling in my brain right now. The first one I'll ask is, can you tell me a particular acting technique that you leaned on especially heavily when you first started that show, and then a new technique you found yourself embracing by the end of it?
The only answer to both is improv, because I don't have any formal techniques to speak of. I don't have other techniques. The only technique I have is improv comedy. That's it. That's really all I have in my toolbox. So in the beginning, it was useful to just loosen up, because I was nervous all the time. Like, it's nerve-wracking. You're shooting an HBO show. It's your first job, like on camera. That's stressful, you know? And so loosening something up a little bit and bravely offering an idea felt like, that felt like a good technique to fall back on in terms of being able to like get to the heart of what the scene was about and what Marnie was going through at any given moment. And then by the end, technique-wise, I don't know. I mean, the last season we shoot right after I had done Get Out, and I guess it's not totally a technique. It's just like a logistical thing. When I was playing Rose's evil, her true self, which we called Ro in Get Out, I'd go be by myself somewhere so that I could just like stay in a very hateful place, because that was hard. Anytime I saw a crew member or cast member, I was like, I love you, I can't hate you. But I had to be in that place. And so when I came back to shoot Girls, there's a scene where we go upstate and Desi, it's like kind of a horror movie coded scene, and then I have a big meltdown afterwards. And to get into that emotional place for the first time after shooting Get Out, I was like, oh, maybe I should just go be by myself somewhere. And then I did, and it was super helpful. So I was like, oh, great.
Well,
that
such
helps.
a good overlap. Yeah. I love that. I'll ask you the question that you might have thought that I was going to ask. I also love asking this question, and I'll open it up to every film and show you've ever worked on. Can you name an actor that the second you met, you were immediately in sync with them? But then I also want the example of someone who's more like the opposite, someone who brought something new to the table and challenged you to adapt.
Oh my gosh, what a good question. This is not the one. Otherwise, I'd be way more prepared. I thought you were just going to ask what my techniques are. And I was like, I'm going to disappoint.
I can assure you my questions are never that simple.
No, they're not. I should have known better. Okay, let's see. I feel like I've gotten really lucky with the people I act with in terms of who I'm in sync with. Like Daniel Kaluuya, who was my first co-scene partner in a movie, we just got each other instantly. Logan Browning for The Perfection, we got each other instantly. Alexander and I are married now, so we also got each other instantly from Horizon Line. And then Violet / the animatronic M3GAN. M3GAN was a learning curve, honestly, because she is a very, God, it's a really tough scene partner to have for a lot of reasons, but not without her merits for sure. I haven't learned anything about technique from her. I've just learned about like what poreless skin really looks like up close because it's not human. And let me tell you, it's gorgeous. I feel like I've been tremendous. And then I just shot a movie with Charlie Day and we just bonded immediately, and Dave Franco. Like I literally have not had that thing of like, I'm in most of the scenes in this movie with this person and we are not a vibe. That has not happened to me. I feel so lucky. Even as I'm like talking about it, I'm realizing like, and Matt Bomer I just am like, the luck goes on and on and on for me.
Every single person you name, I'm like, I love that thing they're in and that thing they're in and that thing and all the stuff that you did with them.
I feel so lucky. And the second question you asked is like, if there was someone that worked very differently, but I was like, I'm going to take something from them. Yeah. You know what I will say about Alexander? So when we met, we were making an action movie, and the questions that he knew to ask, he's now a director as well. And that was very obvious from the way he asked questions about what the camera was going to be up to in any given scene. And also in the edit, eventually, which shots were going to be used for which portions of a given scene. Naively, I have to admit that to that point, because I'd never been part of a post-production process intimately, I kind of thought they took all the footage, went back to the edit, and were like, let's press play on take one of scene one, a camera. And they watch the whole thing, and then they just go through all of it. Like, I don't know how I thought any movies ever got me. That's why a script supervisor marks takes, I know. But it just never occurred to me that like, oh yeah, if you use logic, you'd know that you'd never be in this camera angle for that portion of the scene. And so if it's an emotional scene, for example, don't give your best performance on that angle of, say, someone else's coverage, or if it's a wide behind you, like save it for the part of the scene where it's definitely going to be. I mean, that seems very, very logical, but I never had thought about it editorially. And I have now started to really think about that. And it's made me a much faster performer and a better teammate to the camera department and, you know, the lighting team. Like it's just it's made me an infinitely more collaborative actor, because I just have a better understanding of like when to put in what amount of investment and effort and when to just like keep things moving because it's not that precious.
Here's a question I ask every once in a while that kind of leans into that. If you had the opportunity to learn more about any job on a film set or the production in general, what job would you choose and why?
Oof. Wow, what a great, we're so repetitive. Great question. They all are.
It always means something every time someone says it though.
I know. Well, I think my answer would probably be DP. I think that's what my answer would be, or the DIT.
That job gives me so much anxiety.
I know. Listen, if you're responsible for the cards of anything, like I am, like I should work for like, a Wells Fargo like truck where there's like a lot of security. I feel like, maybe the DP, because I know kind of, I'm starting to get, as an actor, you just sort of know when there's a lighting adjustment that it's going to look better. You can kind of feel that. I always know like where not to stand in a room. If you notice a bunch of actors in a room with like overhead recessed lighting, we're all standing like off at an angle from that overhead recessed lighting. We know better than to just let it hit our top of the nose and just be like casting weird shadow.
That's why all my photos look that way.
No, we are like, I'll tilt my head up towards it, but I'm not going to let it just hit my nose and go like that. But beyond that, like all of the things that they are watching and calibrating for, matching lighting and different coverage for a scene, matching all the levels and the color of the light and the brightness, like all of it I'm really interested in. And also trying to have the light sources feel logical, like down to just like where they're coming from. If there was a lamp that had to be moved for like to pull a couch out of a room so that another actor could come in, making sure that on the reverse coverage there's light coming from that lamp, even if it's a LED strip lighting, that's cool. And I know very little about it, but I genuinely feel that way about every role. The only reason I don't feel that way about like a PA is because I did that and I was a stand-in and I did all these other things on set. So I feel like those I've done. So I feel comfy in that knowledge. But yeah, DP, I think.
I feel like even once you do a job, the learning never stops.
Never.
And
yeah, for
you
sure.
are going to learn so much as a producer, and that's the perfect segue into M3GAN. So on the first film, you were an EP.
Yeah.
Here you are a full-blown producer.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about how that credit transition happened, and I guess what you wanted to do with this new title?
Oh my God, I was so moved. First of all, just to be invited from the beginning to be an EP on the first movie was awesome, because it was a kind of tip of the hat from Jason Blum and everyone at Blumhouse and everyone involved. They knew from working with me on Get Out that I have like a deep, deep investment in the things that I work on. And I would love for it to be a 360-degree involvement from literally leave me off no email chain. I want to know everything. I want to have help. I want to be part of it. I want to learn. Just that curiosity. It feels very strange to me to just walk onto a set and not know like how the location scout went here, how we picked this place, where the generator has to be based on the tech scout. Like I love knowing all of that stuff. And I also love being able to communicate things to the actors and kind of liaise between those two worlds, because very often the actors are sort of just brought into places and aren't given any context for them. And then if you know, like, no, we can't fit the crane through that door. The crane has to be over there. So we can't, if you have a blocking idea, like we're rejecting it, not because we hate your idea, but literally because the lighting can't accommodate it. You know, that kind of thing, being able to explain that to my fellow actors is such a privilege. So on the first M3GAN, I came in pretty early on. I think it was like 2 drafts of the script in, and immediately just was like very, very invested in the creation of that movie, down to like, finding out about clearances and like, we haven't cleared the couch. We need to clear the couch. You know, like it's important to clear the couch.
Everything is important.
You gotta clear everything. Everything is important. And that kind of maximalist, like everything is important, is exactly how I'm wired naturally. And I think given the way I was on the first movie, they very kindly were like, let's give you like the biggest, producer title we can give you on this next one. And that was just the best. It's just the most incredible privilege. And from the very first conversation about what it was going to be to right before I walked in here, being on email threads with our fellow producers about it's like 7 different things that are very important to us and making this movie. It is my whole life. And recently, actually, I was given my PGA mark for the movie, which is very exciting.
I saw that.
Very,
Congratulations.
very proud.
It's a
Thank
big
you.
deal.
It's a big deal. It's a big deal to me. I know some people are like, oh, I wave them and I never go for it, but I think it's a big deal. And in the process of that, you have to write something that's saying what your contributions were to the movie and kind of justify getting the mark. And of course, as I miss college. I miss doing homework. And I was like, an essay opportunity. I love this. And so I went back, did a chronological, archaeological dig through my calendar to be like, what was my investment in this movie? And the answer was like, oh my God, Zooms on Saturday mornings and overseas at 2 a.m. so that I could talk to everybody else, in a quiet bathroom interviewing a post house that we were potentially going to use for CGI. And I mean, it was it was such a privilege and an adventure. And I just feel very lucky that I got to do that and get to make these movies. I love the team that makes these movies so much. And we go through a lot together when we make them. And yeah.
Love that answer so much.
Yeah.
So you were heavily involved in the start of the first one. And of course, that one came out and I thought it sounded great, but I didn't realize how big of a hit that movie was going to become. And then you always feel the pressure to make another one and, go bigger and better. But you have to do that with purpose. So I guess what was the first story idea that was floated by you that made you think to yourself, oh, it is really worth another go around with that character and this concept?
I was in from the beginning. I really was I will make as many of these as we want to make. And I still feel that way. I love this group so much. I love the characters that we've created in the first movie and the tone that Gerard has established for us to have. And at the end of the first movie, there was a very clear mandate that kind of across a bunch of different verticals in our world, the Blumhouse Universal world, the mandate was there's got to be another doll. There's got to be another doll. And then you're like, okay, so there's going to be another doll. So then what? What kind of doll? Who is M3GAN with regards to that doll? And then that thought experiment started to get really, really fun. And figuring out how to build a world to support this story was Akilah initially, and then Gerard for the bulk of it. Like it was his responsibility. And when he came to us with this story that he had come up with, we were like, this is huge, Gerard. Like this is a huge story. This is an action movie. It's an action thriller with our animatronic at the center of it. And I think what's so amazing about what Gerard does is that when he's in the creative process, he might be hearing what other people are asking of him from a studio standpoint or a marketing standpoint, but he kind of shuts it out and he just makes the thing that feels like it follows from A to B and that suits his very, very particular tonal sensibility. It makes sense for the characters. He just lets the story beats dictate where they're going to go in a way that for him is very logical and linear, and for us is always surprising. Like when this movie starts, you can't possibly imagine what's happening by the time it ends.
Not at all.
Can't. It's not possible. Like if you can, you have a weird amount of clairvoyance that's like troubling. It is, but for Gerard, it always was thus. It like just was, this was the plot of the movie and was the way it was going to go. And these were the beats that were going to be off kilter and funny. And this was going to be the emotional, sincere moment that gets diffused by his comedy that he always injects into those moments. I mean, it was, and I think because that's how his process works, he's not making a 4-quadrant movie for everybody, but he's making just the movie that it needs to be. And then I think it's a movie that a lot of people in those quadrants will actually enjoy because it wasn't made for everyone. It was made by him for our world. Like he made this movie for M3GAN basically. And I think it turned out to be something that like has even broader appeal, I think, than the first one.
Oh, there's so many avenues you could pursue with this idea too. I'm not going to get there just yet. I want to squeeze in one more non-spoiler question before I raise the spoiler one.
I was trying to dance around.
I was so tempted to follow up on so many things too, but you brought up before the idea of M3GAN being a scene partner, and I was reading about, all the upgrades in a sense that she got on set while making this movie. So can you maybe tell me the biggest difference between M3GAN as a scene partner in the first film and M3GAN as a scene partner in this one?
Well, so M3GAN as a scene partner in the first film we were all learning how to do it in real time. Not that the Moreaus aren't like full geniuses experienced with animatronics, but the rest of us, I mean. So she arrived in New Zealand, I think 2 weeks before filming started, and she had a lot of prep to do. They had to do hair and makeup tests and costume tests and do all of these things. And then the workflow of filming her is super complicated and took us a while to get the hang of. It's not like it's not like another actor. I mean, it takes 2, maybe 3 times as long to get M3GAN content on film when it's the animatronic. And it feels like it's almost 2 to 3 times more rewarding when it works because it is a group project. You have Kathy and Adrienne Moreau who are at the controls. And in the first movie, they were responsible for, some face servos and like definitely blinking and just some of those facial movements. And then there was a puppeteer, Paul, who was responsible for her moving her torso. And then usually someone, Kathy or Amy Donald, she would sometimes like put her arm in to be M3GAN's hands. And then there was always a grip rotating her torso to try to make it look like she was moving. But and then there was playback for her lines that had been recorded by Jenna. And it was just like a multi-headed beast. And every time we did it, it felt like we were doing it again for the first time. How do we fit this whole team of people into this room in a way that are off camera but can see her face? How do we fit the puppeteers in there when she's being covered on camera? How do we get her to menacingly lean over me on a table and like pretend to strangle me? How do we put force into those like porcelain hands? How do you make it look like they're potentially causing harm to my neck? All of that we really had to learn. And then the second movie came along and they brought her out to show us, I think maybe it was like a month out while we were in prep. They brought her out to show us how she worked, and she suddenly was doing this and turning her head and moving her shoulders. And she also was able to move her hands in a way that was like too human. It didn't work for her. They had to a lot of this they had to roboticize. Is maybe not a word, but that is what I'm going to use. They had to make her movements, which had become too human and too fluid, more M3GAN-like by affecting robotic movements kind of after the fact. They had humanized her. She was so capable. And so that meant that and we had Mark Satrakian now, who was the one who had designed all her lines to play music tracks. And he allowed for a much more fluid experience of shooting with her. It's still a behemoth. Shooting scenes with M3GAN still takes the longest. I know now to ask to shoot my coverage first after we do the 2-shot. Or my coverage first, and then we establish everything in the 2-shot, and then I walk away and they finished on her coverage because it takes hours sometimes. But it's an amazing process, honestly.
It really is incredible. I'll wrap with my one spoiler question because I got to let you go. But I have to, I'll give a proper spoiler warning. If you haven't seen the M3GAN sequel, run out and see it. You just push pause on this video, see the movie, then push play, and it starts again right here. My favorite plot point of the entire movie is when you are required to essentially play both characters. Please tell me just everything about preparing to do that, and maybe what surprised you most about capturing M3GAN.
Everything surprised me about that. The only thing that prepared me is in Get Out, there's a scene where I am on the phone and my voice is panicked and emotional and my face is stone-faced. And that was the only thing that felt like it came close to what I had to do. In this sequence, M3GAN is in a neural chip in my head. So I have her with me essentially. And I go through multiple stages of consciousness while she's in there. I start off being aware of her and alert and ask her to take control of my body. So then I am watching, Gemma is watching M3GAN do things with my body that I, Allison, was obviously doing, but I had to watch myself do it as if I was shocked that I was doing the things I was doing. That was very hard. Then she's in my head and operating while I am unconscious for a little while. And that was also very complicated to like just be kind of passed out, and like doing fight choreography was complicated. And then the last one is she speaks through my voice box at one point when Katie runs into the room. And that was something I did for like hours and hours in the photo booth camera on the MacBook, like hours and hours of seeing, like sending them to Gerard being like, is this it? Is this what it should be like? Like, how much of a M3GAN impression am I doing? Is it more the vibe or is it the voice? Like, are we putting Jenna's voice in here later? And I think what we ended up in the movie with, I'm very happy about, but yeah, that whole part of the movie was just such a fun challenge for me.
We should be very happy with. I was like overjoyed. I want a third movie where it's just the entirety of you both sharing.
Where I'm playing both
like just
parts.
The whole. I want you to play both roles the entire movie. I was just again utterly delighted by it.
I'm putting her out of the job. She is not going to like that, Perry. I'm just going to warn you.
I should know not to push M3GAN's buttons. I'm going to say huge congratulations on the film. Thank you for doing this ladies' night. I appreciate you being here, and I had so many more questions.
I know.
You got to come back soon.
We'll do it another time. And thank you for bringing ladies' night here, and thank you for bringing The Tower.